Good morning, class. Welcome to Homeroom with Unc and Market Monk. And morning, P. How's your week?
It was good. I had a few nice wins, ECHR and uh, MSTR a couple times. Solar was probably the biggest one for me this week. Just had spent so much time just finally just clearing out some of those. But yeah, I mean a lot of stuff. I'd been sort of ready, trimmed a lot of SAS, and obviously the start to the week limited the opportunities throughout the week because that was such a big move to get us going. But yeah, I mean, if you'd been following some of our levels and things, you had some selling to do. More selling than buying this week for me though.
Nice. Yeah, I had definitely with you on selling stuff. The best with me is probably the semis or the JV semis. I mean, I think that's just
Yeah,
because of the it was one of the few like sectors I had pretty good coverage in, versus trying to pick the one or two off of a level. Um, didn't really not buy stuff, but I didn't buy a lot of stuff that I was going to hold. It was very tradable range for me last week. And then I
yeah,
got the real estate there at the end of the week, and just from a long term swing standpoint, you got what you got, and it's real hard to find another entry because you're past where you should average up at, in my opinion, in most cases, and you're not getting solid pullbacks. You're just getting a daily retrace, and you're still in the same trend. So um, still swimming in the pools that have the levels. Been great there. And some shitty names even like like your Wolf and your BBAI and your EVLV, your CLNE last week from the list, all that stuff. Just very tradable range throughout the week, and still kind of in cup fill mode if you're not a long term name for me.
yeah,
So a good week. I love that kind of market because I don't have to focus on both, right? I don't have to what can I trade today for 10 or 15%, and what am I going to trade till September, October.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I had a few. I had about 20 shares of Foot Locker. I didn't really expect that. expect that.
Yeah,
And
exactly. That's a good example.
some of um, the retail stuff that had absorbed a pretty big hit from the tariff perception, the Elf and Ulta and Lulu, and Elf had been down anyway, but I just sort of gave it one more check down and then found some equilibrium. Somebody's got a
I got it. I got
just a
it.
mute.
I got it.
Um, and yeah, so a lot of that stuff just ahead of schedule. It was slow for August or so, and just kind of took off. But it one thing about trading options right now that I really want to encourage people about is it's really a bad time to be significantly out of the money, despite the fact that you see some of these big moves that stocks are making, and so it's like it's tempting to say, well, I could just get $75 contract on this or a $50 contract, and the way the VIX is up and down, and you get these kind of just IV crushes, out of nowhere because the IV is not very stable on a lot of these stocks. So if you get caught in an out of the money contract, and even if the stock moves your direction, it's not going to go up that much, or it's going to go down even as the stock goes up, depending on which one you're in. So unless you really want to develop expertise in Greeks for every particular setup, closer to the money and a little extra time doesn't hurt either. And just be willing to be wrong quickly. And even if you see the stock going up and your premium isn't moving, don't just whine about it like the people on Webull. Just go ahead and get out because you're in a bad setup somehow, and either it's expiring too soon, you're too out of the money, no demand for the contract, something happened, and that doesn't happen if your contracts have intrinsic value, which means they're in the money or close to it, and they can weather some of the smaller up and down. So it's a lot easier to take $500 contract to 700 it is to take 10 $50 contracts to 70. For if those $50 ones are out of the money. So that's kind of options basics, but it's one of those things that people do that they think they're reducing their risk by buying something really small and way out of the money, but you're really just lighting that $50 on fire, and they just do it over and over and over again. So definitely don't do that in here. There's no reason with the resources we have for that really ever to occur.
Yeah, it's kind of uh, foreign language to me because I mean the only thing I really
Sure.
got
Yeah. Yeah.
that relates. I mean, I would ask, is there like, but you kind of answered it along the way. There's not like a one of the Greeks that it's just like RSI at 65 or something where you don't touch it or you do touch it, whatever the case may be. Where on shares, for me, that's listening to you talk. That's kind of why I have the rule of not touching anything, under 7-8 million shares in the float,
Yeah.
because it creates a similar situation. But yeah, not to dilute your water too much on the point there, but it's just uh, I will say trade shares because a lot of that's taken out of the equation. The one
Yeah.
commonality, though, the endpoint was something I thought about this morning. Like, definitely get that voice if you can get it in voice, and it fits perfect here. Like, um, and I'll double down on it's definitely there's receipts for it. We do it every week, so I can find 10 percenters a week and like give you exact numbers. Going, today I could give you exact numbers and say buy this here, and just take your 10%, and I can
Yeah.
find you 10 of those, and I can do that every week, and I could probably hit. I'll just be. I could probably hit, let's say, 3 out of 4 weeks a month, just to be, so we don't have to argue about it. Um,
Yeah.
I can't find you 100%er every week. I'm gonna go like, I mean, first of all, it's market conditions are gonna dictate that, and I'm gonna probably have a way smaller average on finding that one guaranteed from this level to this level every week because it just doesn't move like that. So, to make what you said about the $50 contracts as opposed to the $5 $100 contract, that makes perfect sense in the same regard, and with your how you size really does matter, and what you're looking for really does matter.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I mean, even so within the ER casino, well, there will be two or three 500 to 1,000% trades in there a month, usually, when earnings is going. But there's some duds, there's some break evens, there's some ones people have been posting them like serve from weeks ago. The call on that is up now, whereas it was just crushed the day it happened. So, that's really how you need to go into these big binary events. If you want to just salvage it after it doesn't work the next day, you can. But the ones I post with time, that's sort of my intention there. But if you just pick one in that room randomly and decide, oh, I'm going to trade this one, you're not going to do as well as someone who sort of just commits to the whole thing. I don't care if you do or not, but I'm just saying like that's why it works for me. Is that by all of them, and then the wins carry the thing for the next 3 months, the big wins, and that's how it's been going since I set that thing up. So um, the you definitely don't want in there to go an extra 20% out of the money, be to be cheaper with it. So it's if if that's the kind of if you want a really small sizing to reduce risk, it has to be shares. I guess that would be my point that intersects with what you're saying, that you can't go cheap on options and think you're going to get anywhere. despite what the Twitter people do with their $20 SPY contracts. It just doesn't. It's not repeatable. Those people who do
Yeah, trade shares. I agree. It's pretty simple for me, and um, I think another thing that kind of pops out is the whole market conditions that we covered thoroughly, and it seems like even that is harder to determine. It's like the Greeks on options because there's some conditions where you just don't like a consolidation market. We've found
that.
that out a few times. Like you just do not want to trade options when the market's consolidating. Um, but share side, it's great because if the range is good, you just play that range over and over again, and so it's pretty much an A or B on the share side of when you kind of press the gas pedal, and there's a lot more variables even on that on the option side. Like I would think last week would have been
Yeah.
great for you guys, but I mean I've learned through the years that just watching you and kind of following along that a lot of the premium move is pre-market. You get a big move there, and there's no coming back from that usually, um, to where it was before, whether it was high or low. So like if
Yeah.
uh, if you gap up on sorry, but if you gap up on a stock, I don't know, 10% in the morning on some news, and those contracts were $200 or whatever the day before, or if you gap down on some news, the contract was $200 the day before. Like you're trading a totally different price range now. Like it's hard to find a higher low on an option contract.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. And with the really short expiration stuff, obviously the theta dominates there, and from the jump, the contract is just on a slope down, and the move it needs just break even pretty significant. I mean, you need like on I don't know on QQQ, yeah, 0.1% every hour or something, at least. That's for the ones that are at the money, and they'll just bleed out, kind of bleed out all day. So you're and people just they sort of fall for that over and over, and they hold and hope or set and forget on that stuff. And even on a day, Nasdaq was up close to 4% on Monday, but again, that whole thing was pre-market, and you're just in. The only question at that on Monday was, is it going to retest the pre-market high? That was the only debatable point about it. It wasn't going to break out from there on that day, and you can kind of spot the days where it is gonna. I call it the scam algo, where it's just gonna just grind up all day. But often when you notice that, the time you notice that, it's really too late to do much of anything. And for the people who bought on Friday, we're just going to get a repeat of last weekend, and maybe a trade deal gets announced with UK or another European country or something. Well, then the U.S. gets the credit rating, and then we pull
Sure.
back. Who knows
Yeah.
where that'll be? But the point is, like, to them, well, that's the scam, that's the fake credit, whatever. Whereas it's the same exact process. It's just this time you're on the wrong side of it. So now it's a scam. You think the whole thing's a scam, it's a little better for you, I think. Skepticism about about these
It's
moves.
only a
All
scam
stocks
where
are
you lose.
yeah, yeah.
Other than that, you were a genius, and people should follow you.
Right.
Jesus.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to say much about those guys this week, but um,
Yeah, yeah.
I'll throw that out there. God, I had a point too. Um, oh, that's why the two trades, man. I mean, like a lot of stuff I'd say and do is on again, off again. Like there's about a month ago where I was really talking about like every chart, and it probably like where's Unc going with this shit? But 200 SMA, 200 SMA. Well, you
Yeah.
look back now and you're like, oh well, I see why we were paying attention to that on most charts. And the one thing that really has saved me in what do you want to call it? And having to like make a firm decision right? Is two trades. Like I'm just gonna
Yeah.
take my percentage on this one, and if we're going to the moon or whatever the hell, I'll keep this. And if not, we can SL it at entry and start this whole goddamn process over again. I'm fine with it. But the two trades have been just mentally have been freeing. And again, it's usually more than two trades. But just the idea that I'm gonna short term this chart in a great spot, and I'm gonna long term this chart or medium swing this in this chart, or like him, so all three. I'm gonna short term, I'm gonna medium swing, and I'm gonna long term hold this thing. Has really helped the pullback from the start of the year for me. I don't know about you, but preaching that, I hope a couple other people picked up on that because it's again, it's just you don't have to make the decision today, and you're getting you're getting your cup fill, so to speak, along the way, and it's probably been 60 40 70 30 on completing the whole channel back on a lot of stocks in retrospect from April.
Yeah.
So
Well, and yeah, I mentioned Friday that it was Enphase and Elf, and I was like, I have total. These two stocks are in 6 accounts for me, and all green right now. And it was I have I just call it the DCA dumpster, but it's just kind of the stocks that are well below a pivot mine. It has flow to get there. I feel like that flow might kick the can down the road. I'll just hang out. It's fine. Usually they're previous winners. Um, and so it was like long term. Was good with starting to buy those, and then I had option swings going in them too, and they all three took off. Well, in terms of getting out, yeah, I mean the option's the first to go, and
oh sure,
so I
I
kind
would
of
hope.
move out of that. Exactly, and then I mean you can roll it. I limited situations where I like to do that. SMCI is one where MSTR where I just had this continuous roll thing happening and just took them higher and higher, and it doesn't at some point working with the original position or half of that size, and so you just let it keep going. But usually I'll just get out and re-enter. But anyway, point being that what happens a lot for us is that long the idea of a price or 6 months from now ends up happening
In a
much
month.
more quickly, and for me, it really came down to the week before the Liberation Day thing. I asked you about that 200 SMA, and I'm like, well, what if that's resistance for a lot of these? Like, they could have a pretty hard rejection here, and then at that point, the to it not through it is just getting back to 200 SMA, and I loved that setup because that's just the stock finding some kind of equilibrium, and then and then the flow sets up from there. So to me, that was the biggest opportunity. That was Nvidia at 95 and Tesla 220, and all those that ended up working out really really well for me. And I don't know when I'll be able to do that kind of thing again. So now I'm just back to my option notes and then sector rotations. So we're sort of back to a more moving towards a more stable market. We've been on the 3-2 thing for a while. I still think that be around, but um, I see some signs that there's some clarity, and the medium to long duration swings, kind of where my mind's at for some of these sectors as well.
Yeah, I mean, I went from I know it's ugly, but just buy the big names over the next couple months, which you'd only got like a month to the
Yeah.
bottoms in. I mean, I said that like 3 weeks ago, and um, last week or excuse me, 2 weeks ago was that 565, and I mean that's right where we popped from on the trade news, which we talked about. So I mean, it's just where do we go from here? And but it's well covered. I mean, I don't know what else I
Yeah,
got to do. if I didn't like the golf so much and I was a content creator, I would just go listen to voice and just cap what I said. Little 15-second videos and make sure I edit it real good and post a picture and something sparkly for you guys. But this is not my thing. Like the content's there.
Yeah.
I mean, we put it out. I give it to you the day we create it. This one's free. A lot of it's in here. We don't really talk about market conditions in the other section unless it's very in line with the stock we're talking about, right? Like if we're talking about
Yeah.
China deal and it's a China stock, we'll probably talk a little bit about it there. But the bulk of it's here. So, I mean, if you, I'll put that out there for the Twitter people. If you know how to trade, this should just be something that you use, as kind of like your weekly program. You don't have to be a part of our room or anything like that, but just the general direction is so key, and I hope a lot of people have seen that through the first quarter of it. Because man, we've been good at it, and we keep getting better, and I don't see how we can get better, but we keep getting better. So with that, I'm kind of interested in. I mean, you said you're seeing some clarity. For me, just to kind of kick the can back over to you, I've been kind of looking like making sure because I use your work in my own way. I don't
Yeah.
use it how you use it, but I've been back in that like, all right, I got to have June, July contracts here, and um, be real cool if they had some Januaries or some Octobers to back them. Um, Unless I really like it, October's too far away. January's
Yeah.
definitely still too far away for me. So that's just how I've been approaching it over the maybe the last 2 months. Um, because of where we've been in the direction we've been going. I mean, I'll definitely take if we have just to throw numbers out there. If we have like a 620 contract in September on SPY, then I'm definitely interested in what October upstart would be. Like that would
Yeah.
would be the case. So I'm interested in where you're at now on that.
Yeah. So uh, January contracts can be very significant if they're also working in concert with something sooner, June, July, August, and that's where the boxing glove, thing comes in, and a lot, and then January, the buying isn't as significant as that kind of plausible open interest, the stuff that they held through big market drop
Can I ask a dumb
has,
question? Sorry. Can I ask a
yeah,
dumb question? So when you say open interest, that means contracts that are already written, correct? That's kind of basically what that
yeah,
means. Okay. So
exactly. It's
so
the current marketplace for that particular contract. Yeah,
when you have a lot of dead open interest, like let's especially in something like SPY, because that's not just a one well thing usually. Is that usually held
yeah.
by institutions or by retail people? That's mostly held like by institutions, correct?
Mostly by
Okay.
institutions, around big monthly expirations. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Sorry for that. I just wanted to get.
And so, yeah, and some of that dead open interest, it died but did its job. It was just there to hedge anyway.
So it was the actual
So
insurance part.
yes, exactly.
Perfect. Perfect.
Their preference was that it went to zero. Like this May 16th SPY 460 was the highest open interest contract, and they just let it all die. And so with that one, and one of the reasons these monthly expirations are so important is that you get that off the books, and then it gives some clarity to the whole picture. Like now it's September 535 put is that's the one.
On
That's the
SPY.
insurance policy on SPY. Yeah.
Five
Um,
532.57 auto RTO on the weekly. Sorry.
Yeah, there you go. Right. Yeah. And so that one is still in the scenario where it's plausible. And then the calls are June 580 600.
Yeah,
The
there we
calls
go.
are much sooner. The calls are monthlies, and the put is 3 months out. And so you imagine a scenario where you have both of those calls going, and you got the insurance with the put with some extra time, and that's the setup they're in. And so I comb through the contracts that are out there to find those, and sometimes hedges that they use, it's something that was really not plausible, 3 weeks ago or a month ago, but all of a sudden is. And that's what the Liberation Day thing did. Woke up a lot of stuff, and then they're not even buying those hedges. Those hedges are already there, and so they just sort of go to work based on what they already had in reserve. That's essentially what happens.
So, circle the wagon for me here. Even market makers on the option sides kind of have two trades. I'm assuming they have a book, a share position, and they hedge it with
Yeah.
some options. That's the two trades, right? You got a $1.6 million SPY position, and you hedge it with 50K in puts or whatever. Yeah, two trades.
Yeah, and this is where people who read flow
Suck.
really don't or can't do this, because the contracts that I'm talking about, and you can go back to weeks and months of our conversations about that where my ideas about SPY come from, and where we're early on a lot of this. That contract might have only had 300 um, buys per day, or buys and sells. Like, that's it. So like for SPY, that seems astronomically small, but open interest on the thing is 147,000, and so it's already, they're using it. It's there. It's establishing some kind of important spot. And then the shorter duration contracts, the ones that do get the big volume push, which was SPY, is like zero DTE in the next day, and whatever. I mean, that can kind of give it spark and momentum to those spots, but the spots are already there, and people really ignore that. It's funny because, I mean, on the whale page, there's a page where it's right in front of you. Like, it's not like you have to even look for it.
Mm-hmm.
They just don't care about it. They're just on the zero DTE mindset, and miss the bigger picture for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot of moving parts is where it goes. But no, it makes sense on the
Yeah.
a little bit more on the mechanics. I think not to critique you or too much, but I think you you assume that some of these regulars or new guys, or even people that have lucked out and think options are gig, understand a lot of the mechanics behind it. So I have to ask some stupid questions to kind of make sure it's
Oh
getting
yeah, no, that's
across.
that's fine. Yeah. Um, yeah, I mean, that happens. And if we were having a conversation about I don't know, like
Spelling.
medieval Latin theology or something, that can happen too, where you're just sort of like, start talking, and then someone's like, "Hey, wait, take 3 steps back. What did you mean by that?"
Kind
And
of like
then you
changing
have
your
to
oil, huh, Pete?
exactly right. Yeah, the
um,
ultimate PhD question for me is, how do you change the oil in a Honda?
nice, nice. Yeah, no, just to kind of go over where we've been. I mean, like, last week you're dead wrong, but we were right 3 weeks before. I mean, I said at the end of voice, 665. We asked, that was kind of the level we established on, not
Yeah,
necessarily changing trend, but retracing the entire move, and then we kind of 580 the flow was positive, and were we going to get there and whatnot, and left voice thinking that's a stretch, and one little handshake is all it takes to kind of change the
yeah,
thesis. But
yeah.
yeah, yeah, you want to get some trade talk or some boring stuff here? There's no reason to go super
Yeah.
boring.
Let's do it. Let me.
Whatever you want to go to
I
first.
got my screen sharing. You see
I
copper right now?
Yeah, I said just to make a quick note on that. I did say and you covered it, I think, in the group, but if that China deal comes in, it's game on. Well, what do you
Yeah.
think gonna happen if we get a China and an India deal? I mean, it's gonna be.
Yeah. Right. And I think in India is they've sort of played Trumpism very well, and have established themselves as a favorable trade partner. It's where Apple can move a lot of stuff, and um, so yeah. I mean, I think they're very bullish on India. I said that a long time ago when BRICS first came into the
Oh,
conversation.
same
I
thing.
said
Yeah, yeah.
India is kind of the one. So yeah, and I think yeah, China's going to go back and forth. And I mean, and to me, the percent of the tariff actually doesn't matter that much. It's the certainty about it that really is what um, will turn things positive. And I mean, yeah, you had Walmart come out and say they got to raise their prices. You had Trump critiquing Walmart, you know, as they should eat the tariff costs, which they can't do. But you're going to get a lot of that kind of back and forth. But yeah, anything that's clarity. Market can tell an optimistic story about itself. It's going to tend to do that, and so we've learned that for a long time, and just have to be ready for that, and don't chase puts. That's the big one.
Yeah. I,
Right. So
I didn't even think about the BRICS angle, but man, Uncle be about as bullish as possible when we make a deal with Brazil.
yeah,
Just saying,
yeah,
write
right.
that one down.
And there's some names for Brazil, and it's I mean I tend towards the basic materials stocks, but there's even you know payment processors and banking and things in South America that pretty beat up charts that I think can take 50% just on almost nothing.
Well, yeah, and they're
Yeah, well,
logistically they're last on the list too, so you just kind of know that everything
right,
else is flushed well for you by then, if that's
yeah,
where our attention
exactly.
is.
Yep. All right, so uh, copper looks like some consolidation to me. Um, Healthy spot above the pivot at 4, even in the 430 or so. Not a big deal, but yeah, I'm still liking copper. Next uptrend, probably a dollar move for it. So um, there's some names there. I like aluminum a little more and steel over FCX. FCX, I caught the bottom on that, so I'm not really looking to add there. But yeah, I still these are in pretty good shape. China's a big player in this. It's fairly complicated how that ends up playing out, but as far as demand for copper, I mean China, they build whole cities that nobody lives in. So you add U.S. infrastructure spending into that, then um, that will be good. And I think that that to me is in terms of positivity about this administration, which for some people would never happen no matter what he does. But I just mean in terms of market, like infrastructure spending. That's the big one that he's kind of got in his back pocket that he could bring out and would overcome some of the negativity about tariffs and all that.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the big beautiful bill to get into fucking big beautiful
Exactly.
action.
Right.
I don't think we
um,
get that in the first year, though. I really don't.
no, no, I don't either. And then silver, uh, good. I mean, it's 32, 36 is what I'm thinking, and then a breakout at 36. So I'm still on that. Doubtful we get some big dip to 29 again. I don't really don't really see that. Gold kind of pulling back as expected. I mean, this is still $3,200, so um, that might consolidate up here for a bit. I don't see anything real imminent with a breakout in gold, but yeah, I think there's still an opportunity to fill some positions in some of those with silver being a little better.
I like it.
And
I mean, last five last week we covered it.
yeah, exactly. Natural gas, still just they're kind of consolidating up here. I think anything over $3 is fine, and you're going to do this 3 to 5 thing a couple more times before you do the 5 to 7 thing. That'd be my take on natural gas right now.
Yeah, if there's any infrastructure projects that get started early or that will be leading, it's going to be natural gas, in my opinion. It's
Yeah, yeah.
the
I think time's your friend on those, especially the combo names.
love it.
And Yeah, oil. Definitely like my entry on a lot of the oil names that we've talked about, and just expect this to. It'll probably test 70. We'll kind of see what happens with that, but I do think that it tests 70 sometime in the summer, and but it could park down here for a bit, but which is fine. I mean, this can just stay parked, and the stocks will grind up. A lot of those are still pretty oversold on my end.
Yeah, like we've talked about them, they'll do good with stability. Um,
Yeah.
I would be a little careful, or not be careful, but definitely be paying attention to news if Trump's in Middle Eastern countries, because that could definitely be part
Yeah.
of the deals. Um, yeah, we're fine. I like the again. It's more of the it's more of the building stuff trade. Got him lost for word there, but it
Oh yeah.
I like the
Uh,
upstream, the downstream stuff that you found. You know, like the
Rigs, equipment,
yeah,
pipelines. Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
that because I think that's who benefits as opposed to just from what we should do to for energy independence as opposed to the price of a commodity. We haven't really
Yeah.
done
Absolutely.
that. Like we have, I mean, just Trump had his he had his he was distracted his first term, and he really didn't. So we haven't had a big window in probably 15 years where we've really had like you know all in by our government on oil, and that's just like anything. It kind of gets too much one way, and then too much regulation back the other way, and then too much one way, and it's kind of swaying. But man, it's been a while since we've just been like drill, for lack of better terms, drill baby drill, or all the way on in American oil. I think the Keystone Pipeline situation was the last that I could really think
Yeah.
where it was all the way over to the get your own fucking oil out of your own ground instead of shipping it
Right. Right.
in.
Yeah.
So I think they're the lagging of the sector as opposed to your like your suppliers.
Yeah. Absolutely. And a 10-year. This could see a pretty big spike early in the week.
They always talk about
And
5 p. I mean, I think that's a long way
yeah.
away.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, it is. And the again with this one, the acceleration of the moves what matters, and because it creates the pop and fade thing, which I always talk about that. I really harp on that because as an options trader, it is you just have to be aware of it, and it's where you really have to just be. You take your 30. I mean, it sounds ridiculous. Take your 30%, your crumbs of 30%
Yeah.
trade, and just get out. You're not. It's not the time to hold for the 100% move. And with the 10-year up here, definitely is not. You yes, you can catch that in like solar last week. Um, crypto stocks, will do it, but you're the AVGOs of the world. These are the days where it pops up, 2%, then goes flat, and it'll just go flat all day, and then you try to buy the dip. Those options just burn to nothing. 10-year up here definitely does that. So you still get upside. You still get ice moves up. It's just the follow through isn't there when this is moving like this. So it just definitely be careful. You can't trade this thing, but it definitely is influential on the conditions. So be mindful of that.
Yeah, it's something that's still kind of not really in my wheelhouse or on my radar much, but um, I was definitely right there when I knew it was going to become relevant again because I just pay
Yeah,
attention to a lot of people that do. So I think it stays
yeah,
relevant.
exactly.
I think it stays relevant too, probably for the at least a quarter or two. I think it's the
Yeah,
because
yeah,
it,
definitely.
it it all revolves around our debt, and that's where that rating news just came out. So yeah,
And it's a big. it's a big priority of this administration to this thing under 4 and keep it there. I think so.
Oh, sure.
It's a disruption when it's not, and can cause a little bit of blips of chaos here and there.
Well,
Then
uh, it's a good umbrella for overall market conditions. Like if that's healthy, you can
yeah,
really use that as a benchmark for any argument on the market. Whereas if you just use SPY or whatever the S&P, fucking a month ago they were saying all the old people like were gonna be on the street and dying and couldn't eat and had to change their lifestyle just a month ago from that pullback. And you talk
yeah,
to someone now and they're all back. They're all back to where they were before they started to panic. So that it's just basically where you are in the market breadth, whereas the 10 year really is an indicator of overall conditions. So
yeah, exactly. And then a crypto did what we thought, what we talked about, and had some good entries on a lot of that stuff. Coin had the nice follow through. Coin's very readable for me again up here, more so than when it's around 200. It's much more difficult than the 220 to 250 thing. So I'm kind of back on that. I think it's to be careful up here, shorter duration. We do get a pullback in Bitcoin. It's probably 92 and not 75, in my opinion, because I do think that
oh sure, I get you.
guys talking 200K are stupid, but 120 I do think is certainly plausible
Yeah, I'm surprised
for
we
me.
stayed above. We're holding above 100, which psychological. I
Yeah,
shouldn't have to explain that to anybody. Why that's huge. That does change the game the longer you hold here. Which if I was like pro Bitcoin going to 200 the moon, this is my long term investment person. I would love for Bitcoin to stay at 100K for like a month and a half. And 95 is cool
yeah,
too. 95 would be cool too. Like just hold
yeah.
that level, kind of build there for a run to 115, 120. Um, for me, I'm not that guy. I don't have
Right,
a bunch of meme coins and a coin account, and they didn't get my information, sir. Um, but
right.
I do like trading the charts. I agree with you, and we just had that trade. So for me, it's not
Yeah,
something that you have to let that set up again on the share side on most of those um, miners in the Bitcoin sector or the data centers or whatever you want to call them at this point. But it was great trade on a lot of that. I mean, you had 50% moves on a lot of things there.
Yes, it could go retest 24, 25,
Yeah,
but
so I'm
sure is
looking for divergence,
nicer under
Pete.
10.
Yeah,
Yeah.
looking for divergence in the charts. Like a pullback in any name would be what I would be looking for currently.
Yes, and so
There we go.
yeah, and so I would look. I like to Riot. To me, is probably one of the better setups in crypto right now. Now I can just read coin every day, but I'm talking about like I'm not saying coin's going to 320 from here. I'm saying it's going to bounce 250 to 280 probably 3 times. But then Riot, uh, we had a better entry on this, but a line above is very relevant in flow and just I mean at least 10.
Yeah, 11 too.
Um,
Yeah, we're the
yeah,
same on that.
11,
Yeah,
right.
11,
So
18.
like
Yeah.
yeah. So it's there are definitely still a lot of opportunities in it,
Well, yeah, and then
but
you
you
go
have
to
to
you go
understand.
to a chart. Not to get too much into how to trade. I mean, we don't talk about that much here, but you go to the chart and you got a weekly wick down to like the low eights. You had 11 on the flow. 7 was the last bottom. It's really easy to start a position there in the mid to low eights on these pullbacks. So
But and yeah, and this actually this brings up something I wanted to rant a little bit about. But if you did buy, so you buy at 915 or 910 or 908 or something, um, and then you really can't let a move to 850 shake you out of that
no, well
because
you gotta
what
have
are
a
you
plan to
doing?
buy. You can't plan a flag. That's it right there.
Yeah,
Can't.
right. and
I don't know why people have the problem of, all right, I don't want to buy here, and then not being excited to buy more cheaper. I mean,
yeah,
the whole, I guess I mean, I guess it depends on your psyche, but for me, I mean, I don't want if I bought 915 here, I don't want it to be 11 tomorrow because I'm only gonna have 100 shares. I want it to dip to
right.
like 825, so then I get an average about 860, maybe 840, and then I got 2 or 300 shares. Then if I even get back to the 915 and it just keeps rejecting 915, I'm still gonna get out ahead overall in the trade. That's the best plan as opposed to I buy here kind of high and it takes off. That's I mean, yeah, there's no finesse to that. That's always bothered me. P. Sorry, I don't know
Yeah,
if that
no,
was.
and that with we were on semiconductors.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't buy a semiconductor and then a 10% stop and then I'm fully out. Um, there's no way to do. I mean, because the move above is 30-40% at a minimum, right? And but you don't really you can't time that exactly, but you sure as hell don't want to just pile in as a bad 2 days to start the week, and then I'm out. When we even said that week that it's probably going to be a little sour to start the week if we're doing the 3-2. The two are going to be Monday, Tuesday, and then you know it should close the week
Well,
pretty
they
well.
didn't.
And that's exactly what it did.
I don't want to pick on anybody, but that example didn't buy Monday, Tuesday when it was on my fucking level, and then complained
Right,
Thursday
right,
about it when it was going back to my level. So if
yeah,
I guess use my level until you find a way to find something you're confident in, but you have to have confidence in where you're buying. Because if not, you'll be
yeah.
doing just that exactly. You'll wait for the move to happen, and you'll be like, "Here we go. I don't want to be late." And then just consolidation puts you down. Whereas you could have had a really good entry. And if I
Yeah.
would, and if you question me, that's fine. Start out with what I say all the time. I stand on it constantly. Just be cheaper than Unk. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
You'll be fine. I mean, because I'm trying to be cheaper. Trust me, my levels. I'm trying to get it under that. You think I'm not? You think I'm trying to pay premiums? Fuck, you ain't been here long enough.
Right, right. Yeah. And this was the one that
Yeah, I was gonna mention that a few minutes ago. Like, I forgot what you said, but it's like, fuck, well, just trade Roku from 60 to 70 bucks and shut the fuck up. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
same thing. But that, yeah, I didn't get to play it this time. I would have been fine, but I'm just cheap. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and it very much did look like it was headed there. And I had one um there was snow
I got that one though.
where it was like
31. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Just thought it was going to go, a little lower. But
Yeah, you ain't figured that
not.
about me too. Like when we get to the top, we're very similar lines on this chart, except for I only have the top and bottom. But uh, I'm usually gonna ask when it's at the bottom, and if it's a go, we go. And then when we get to the top, snow was last week. It was in voice last week because we got to the top. We got to reread it, and that's just. I mean, it's
Yeah.
again, if you don't have levels, get them, and then pay attention when the stocks are at those levels. But and then yeah, ask professional
And
questions. That's what I do.
this one, I mean, we talk about multiple trades
Oh yeah, Jesus.
as a yeah as that and this actually this I want to go back to this moment real quick. My first attempt at diagonal lines ever was this, and had it wrong on where it was going, but that was like a spot where it kind of just lost a lost a trend, and you know,
I like that. No, I like that, P. I like that.
yeah,
I mean, if you
yeah,
that you want that kind of continuation. I mean, it's you
yeah,
if you ask like if someone asks, well, what's the difference of the angle? Like let's say that's a 30-degree angle or a 50-degree angle, whatever case may be.
yeah,
Well, the volume the stock's getting and the price range of the stock is just consistent. that's what dictates the angle, and
Right.
you don't want to see the I always call it gas, but you just don't want to see the activity fall out. And this is a great example. When it does, it tries this tried to fight, but it gave. I mean, if that's not a sign over what 3 months that it's probably time to take some profit in the 300s, I don't know what to tell you.
Right, right, yeah, yeah. And that was and I learned from applied that to Duolingo and Spotify, and just made a second whole new trade basically
Yeah, the only thing I
after the
would,
break even.
if I were you, I mean, little Unk to Monk mentorship that we're slowly don't do anymore because you're way beyond that. But I would just have the horizontal line on the price point as well, coupled with that trend
Yeah,
line. Like, all right, we're not going back below this again. And you just kind of
right.
keep
No,
walking up those
yeah,
two
yeah,
lines together, and that's your intersection. And yeah, you'll be fine.
yeah. And this and we've been at this long enough that these last two examples, Snow and Roku, that those are really old lines at this point.
A little bit.
And those that helps. Like I haven't been. I've got a formula for making new levels and things. I just haven't needed to for a while on a lot of these because it just hasn't really done that. And I had someone ask me like, "What's your pivot on end phase?" And I was like, "Well, it's 78, so we're we're a ways down from my pivot. I haven't set up a new one just because hasn't really conditions aren't right for that. And in your take on end phase matches that, right? And
Sure.
so First Solar was better. We were on that, and lo and behold, First Solar was much better. And the last boring one I'll go ahead and get into. It's not really that
Wait,
boring,
before
but
you go, I pulled up just for shits and giggles the one because
yeah,
that's not half the reason, but there's a big reason why I always have the change on everything. It's just easier to search. And 131.35 is my snow line. 12/1/2022, and
yeah,
there's about a month, maybe 3 months where I was hounding you on this is the level. But
right, right,
again, that's a long time ago.
yeah, exactly. But I just wanted to just mention if you watched last week, um, pretty much nailed this one. Tan,
Oh
you had
yeah,
said
yeah.
that hey, that's the one to get. And because it really didn't matter with if First Solar is going to move, it's going to carry this thing, and it doesn't really matter what Enphase is doing. And in fact, last week there was a day where First Solar was way up, and Enphase just popped and sold off and dropped. It's like 8% down. And that I actually went back into it when it did that, but this didn't react to that just because it's a sector wide thing, and we caught a really nice sector move there. Still, I've only got one line on this chart. Ways to go to that, but yeah, I mean, this is a sector that I think will still be around for a while.
Yeah, I remember that end phase 8% day, and I was like, "Ha! I told Professor that was the shitty one over here." But
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
when you have a graduate's degree in trading that, yeah, it comes through. Comes through that you can just pretty much understand what you're seeing and know how to attack it. Um, yeah, no, I don't. I mean, I don't know how to probably take a little bit of this instead of some spy time, but um, I don't know if people can't figure it out or understand it, but I figured out trying to figure out why people can't understand it. That um, and I tried to use it the last few months, but I'll just come out and kind of say of one that really sticks out to me is like the habits you're forming early on usually stick, and the habits that
yeah,
you form early on where you're successful are probably the ones that are going to be hard to get rid of. So and you can form bad habits and win. Like holding options. That's it. That's why you probably hold fucking
yeah,
options is because at one point in time you held some options and you won. So you think that's like that's how I do it. And for me, I mean, I try, I lucked out where I was able to just kind of put some money, plant my flag, so to speak, and 100% full port in one stock, which thank God I don't do that stuff. Um,
Yeah.
but kind of just go back to work and let it happen. So I've always had that in my head, and that's why I'm kind of more of a swing trader. It's because it just you're gonna win over time. But I want it to be easy. Like I want to
Yeah.
just buy something, not have to worry about it, and go golf. So I don't. I think a lot of people miss that part. And if I'm giving myself time, you can't be worried about it every single day. Like Hims is a good example. Just buy that shit in the 20s and shut the fuck up. I mean, really, I think it's a $200
Yep.
stock. I'm telling you to buy it in the 20s. Um, I got examples if you don't believe me that it works. Have we talked about Roblox 28 or 18 in a while? I mean, you're never going to talk about that again. So just understand, and then if you do want some day action, you do a good job at that. But you also do a good job explaining that it's just a little bit of what you're doing now, because you are more into
Yeah.
the attacking at the proper time. So yeah, just I think that's more important than talking about Spy. But it's something that kind of stuck with me the last week. That like, why are we talking about these things? Or these are the things we should be talking about, and we're
Yeah.
not. So sorry about the little rant
A good
there, but
point. No, no. It's we actually covered Spy already, so
oh,
I
good.
gave people the level. Yeah, we the 535 and then 600C June in
So
that's
they did
your
bump it to 600, huh? Well, let's get
yeah
in a little
yeah.
GA side. So is 580 gonna hold then, P? Like, is that just flipped? We ran through that, and that's now kind of the floor.
Hey, yeah, I mean, well, okay, so it's 58 the June 580 that went in the money, um, which is now over 2 grand, which was significantly cheaper than that when we last talked about this. But it's they could put a lid on Spy at 580 if they want to by selling this off pretty heavy. However, adding 600 to the mix indicates that 580 is going to put up a fight for me. So yeah, I'm very interested. In fact, I hope at
We get a good
credit rating,
flush.
yeah, there's a good flush so I can see how it reacts. That's the main thing I'm looking at early in the week.
Yeah, I I would 580 is a higher low for me. It's still that 565 ish area. That's kind of the.
Yeah.
There's no way we're gonna go back below this. 580 would be a very bullish higher low for me. That's why I'm looking for it.
Yeah, and then that will correspond to Nvidia number.
You looking for a downside number?
Yeah, yeah, like 125, 120, something like that.
So again, that's good. Anything above
Yeah,
118 is great.
exactly. Yeah. So so I always say like I tend to it's not my favorite thing to read Nvidia and all them. Kind of why I was on AVGO for so long, which that worked out for me just fine. I mean, it did the same thing, but yeah, the sold puts are going to get real active as people try to chase a downside move, and they'll just put a wall up in the 122 probably. Um, so we'll see if I'm right about what that option activity looks like. But yeah, I mean, there's a really really strong possibility you get a solid higher low, and then people are gonna miss that happening, and then it's gonna move pretty high off of that.
Nice, nice. Perfect. Yes, real quick shout out to Goose on the spy combo at the end of the week. We pretty much nailed that move. Um, like Wednesday, Thursday, just talking about where we should end over the week. You always know when she's back in on spy. Um, good time to
Right,
trade.
right.
Good time to trade.
Yeah.
Perfect. All right, you ready to get to work, Pete? You got anything else ready to get to work?
Yeah, yeah. I'll grab a coffee real quick, and then we'll after it.
Perfect. Like and subscribe link somewhere, people.